Though we may be forever dismissed as silly fools, we'll always pave our own way without embarrassment or fear. Even if some people say they're quite dismayed to hear that we are living in sin, living in sin. If there is a heaven, then we're not getting in. We could subscribe.
Hello and welcome to Table to Stage. I'm Jordan Werma and this is my podcast. It is my continuing mission to explore creativity and to speak with artists and creators from all areas of life. Today's creator is Thomas Benjamin Wilde, Esquire. Tom represents the further reaches of my exploration so far, as he's a musician from Great Britain. You may be familiar with his wildly viral video of his song, I've No More Fucks to Give, which is how I and about 30 million others became familiar with his unique brand of music. So let's cross the ocean and hear from banjolele musician, witty lyricist, and all-around dapper chap, Thomas Benjamin Wilde, Esquire. So where are you from initially? Were you born in England?
So I grew up in a fairly small town. Well, I say a small town. It's a big town, but it's not a particularly well-known town called Bedford.
Uh-huh.
It's about 53 miles north of London. It's actually, I don't know if you know the comedian John Oliver.
Of course I do, yes.
Yeah. Well, he's originally from Bedford, actually.
Uh-huh.
And actually, it was quite interesting. I can't remember what show it was on, but he described it as being a scrappy little town. That if it was a lovely town, but if it's backed in the corner, it'd chew your face off. And I thought that was quite a good description of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 53 miles, pretty much exactly 53 miles outside of London.
Okay.
So yeah, I was born in York, but I didn't really live there at all. So I grew up in Bedford, or just a small town outside of Bedford called Kempston, which is kind of the rough side of Bedford.
Ah, okay. This is like a working class town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually kind of one of the most multicultural towns in Britain, comparatively, kind of in terms of its size. So I've kind of always grown up with kind of, a big multicultural influence from the local area. We've got big communities of kind of people from Italy, Asian, Polish, all of those kind of things. It's a really interesting place.
Oh, wow. So what did your parents do when you were growing up?
So my dad actually worked in social services with kids in foster care.
Uh-huh.
So he'd kind of go around and kind of visit and kind of make sure that they were kind of being looked after okay, that they were going to school and all that kind of stuff. And my mum had various different jobs. She worked in Sainsbury's when I was very young, which is a big supermarket chain. But then
it must be very big because I've actually heard of that.
Yeah. And then she worked in kind of healthcare services, so managing kind of cleaners, but then also as a care worker in various places, kind of mental health and adults with learning disabilities and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of my kind of early job experience was kind of, first of all, cleaning in hospitals and then doing care work.
Oh,
so I come from quite an interesting background of that kind of thing, really.
Yeah. One thing I noticed in all of that background is that there was no mention of music at all. So how did you first come to music as something you were interested in? Interestingly
enough, the fact that these records are in front of me at the moment, my first memories of kind of really being into music was when I don't know how long it went on for, but when I was younger, I seem to remember Friday evenings they'd get the record player out and they would play music to us. And we just listened to music ranging from, Shirley Bassey, Bob Dylan, to kind of classic music, Gilbert and Sullivan. I think that was kind of from my grandfather's influence.
Yeah.
And kind of anything in between, really. My dad was very very into Bob Dylan, but also kind of prog rock.
Oh, okay.
And old English folk music.
Oh,
so there was a lot
those
of kind
go
of
hand in hand right there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of. I don't know if you've ever heard of a band called Steel Eye Span.
I don't
They were
believe
quite
so.
an early influence. They had a big hit called "All Around My Hat," which was quite a big hit over here.
That sounds like it could come right off of your record. That song title.
And so they sung old English folk songs, but in a kind of very 70s kind of revivalist kind of way. So with guitars and and various kind of more modern instruments.
Yeah. You say you were gathered around the record player on your Friday nights.
Yeah,
Who is that that's gathered around the player? Is that you and your parents? Or
me, my parents, my brother, and my sister. So I've got a younger brother and older sister.
Now, did you ever get to choose the records, or were they put on for you?
They would introduce us to things, and then kind of eventually as it went on, I seem to remember us demanding certain songs and certain things be played. And there were kind of a lot of the old folk songs we very much enjoyed listening to, but there was also the classical music. So kind of I'm looking at Holst the Planets and Tchaikovsky's ballets and things like that, which are all. I'm just going to pull one out now. Sound of Music. There we go.
Okay, all right.
And behind that is the Pointer Sisters.
Nice.
So quite a
eclectic.
variety. Yeah, massively eclectic. So that's really where the first influences for music came in, I think.
Yeah. When did you start realizing that you were sort of developing a taste of your own, and what sort of stuff were you drawn to?
Well, when I was very young, I actually went to see a collective school concert at a kind of local village or kind of town hall, and there was a group of people playing trombone there. And I was very impressed by this. I decided to learn the trombone at school. So from the age of about 9 to the age of 15, when I rebelled and decided I was punk rock.
No place for a trombone.
Until ska punk happened.
Oh, right,
ska punk then happened, and I'd missed out on it. But yeah, so I started playing trombone from about 9, and that got me into the kind of more classical music side of things. And made me quite interested in those kind of things. At school, I was in choirs, male voice choirs. I was a bit of a geek at school, and kind of hid in those places to have something to do at lunchtime, really.
Yeah.
But I found I could sing. I quite enjoyed singing, so we'd go along and sing. And particularly when I reached kind of older years, when I was kind of from the age of about 13, being given sheet music and singing in choirs and stuff. Even though I'm not a great sight reader. Would be given things like Handel's Messiah and all those kind of God. It sounds thinking back at all these influences, massive.
Yeah.
And then in about 1992, my sister introduced me to Guns N' Roses.
Oh, okay.
So I was a bit too young for them, and they played quite locally in a place called Milton Keynes. I don't know if you've heard of Milton Keynes at all.
No, I don't think so.
They've got a big kind of concert arena there. And Guns N' Roses played there in I think 92 or 93.
Yeah.
My sister went. I wasn't allowed because I wasn't old enough, because I was only 12 at the time. My parents quite rightly didn't let me go, but I was gutted.
Yeah.
After that, I did go and see REM there and Bon Jovi, but it wasn't the same as going and seeing Guns N' Roses.
Right. Now, 92, 93 would have been the Use Your Illusion years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were those records influential on you?
Oh yeah. In fact, the first album I remember having, in fact, going back a little bit, the first album I remember actually buying was Phil Collins' But Seriously.
Oh. That's the one he won the Grammy for, right?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it's not one I've really gone back to that much. But then it was the Proclaimers' Sunshine on Leaf.
Okay.
I remember having them on cassette tape. So I've always had kind of quite an eclectic mix. Then I had my own cassette recorder, which was one of those flat lie-down ones. Mm-hmm. It didn't have a lid on it, so you had to just press the tape in.
I think we had the same one.
And I remember somebody giving me, I think it was my sister actually, gave me a recording of GNR Lies.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the first tape that kind of really started off my the music of my teenage years. Yeah. Which was closely followed by Iron Maiden. Then I went through the Nirvana phase as well after Kurt Cobain died.
Sure.
Not quite old enough to have appreciated it while it was live.
I was exactly the demographic for that to hit me when that happened.
Just missed out on that. And then I went on from about the age of 15. It was punk rock, and I was listening to old English punk, and I got into the Sex Pistols and the Clash and all those kind of things. And that's the time where basically I rejected playing the trombone, and I started learning the guitar a couple of years before. And then from that point on, I was in bands of various different forms. I mean, going back to kind of the Guns N' Roses era, me and my friend a group of us used to mime along to Guns N' Roses songs in our garage or garage.
Yeah.
He would play a cardboard box with a gas canister.
Just like the pros use.
Yeah. I would pretend to play a guitar and we'd just sing along with Guns N' Roses songs.
Sure. Yeah, you could spend an afternoon doing that easy.
Yeah. And then we went on to form a proper band because we actually met someone who could play the guitar properly. And then I went into my punk rock stage and kind of formed various bands that played locally, playing in local venues, really.
Sure.
I was in a band called Groin Dog back in the day.
Okay.
And we saw ourselves as a bit more of an in-joke than a band. That we had kind of punk rock playing, but we also had somebody who played the mandolin.
In a punk band.
And a rapper as well.
Okay. Just throwing all caution to the wind.
Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
putting it all together.
And I seem to remember us doing a cover of TURTLE Power, which people quite enjoyed.
Oh boy.
And so we had a few years doing that. And then I think must have been about 2000, about 1997, I got asked if I wanted to be in our local youth opera, which was run by one of my teachers at the time.
This was a natural progression from punk
absolutely.
to youth opera, right?
At this point, I was kind of running down all different pathways, so I was quite enjoying the kind of theatrical side, because I went to college at the age of 16 to study performing arts, so to start doing theatre and that kind of thing. Basically because there wasn't a popular music course that I could go and do at that point. I couldn't go and do a course where I could just play punk music.
Right. We're talking about the 90s, though, and that's quite a bit after like the real punk era was
absolutely
tapering off. What drew you to the punk music at that point?
I really don't know. I really don't. Middle class rebellion, I think it was.
I think that's how it started in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah. So I joined the youth opera. We did a production of the Pirates of Penzance.
Okay.
And actually, it was a show I'd already known because my sister had been in it when she was at school. And that kind of really started the interest, I think, with kind of clever lyrics, funny lyrics, witticisms, and that kind of thing. Because I did enjoy singing Gilbert and Sullivan, particularly kind of patter songs, where the lyrics are kind of really, really concise and clever, and there's no kind of filler lyrics in there at all. It's all kind of really good, witty content.
Right.
So I was with this group for 4 or 5 years, I think, far past being what could be deemed youth. But I think they were struggling to find youth people to be in an opera.
Right. So you're only as old as you feel. And
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly that. So then I started getting kind of lead parts in those. I was never the best singer. Actually going along and joining that group made me realise that there were far better singers technically than me. But I was quite good at doing the comedy parts. So I played quite a lot of the kind of comedy roles, the comic relief within those kind of things.
Yeah.
And also doing kind of musical theatre and stuff like that in college as well. I was part of, I don't know if you have amateur dramatic societies in the US at all.
Sure.
AmDrams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was enjoying being a member of those, doing productions like Jesus Christ Superstar and Me and My Gal, Guys and Dolls,
Yeah.
Oliver with an
Okay.
exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I was in all of those kind of things because it was good fun. I quite enjoyed it. But at the same time, I was trying to maintain this kind of punk rock credentials as well, which
That's hard to do when you're doing a standard musical fare.
but you know, I think it was the most punk rock thing I could have done, actually, doing all of that.
Yeah, right. Going against the anti-establishment.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to get into doing the comedic roles and stuff like that, was there a specific influence for you as far as the comedy aspect goes?
Well, I mean, going back to my younger years as well, my dad was very much into Tom Lehrer and the music of Tom Lehrer.
Okay.
And from what I can remember, because my dad died when I was 20, he enjoyed lyrics over everything else, which is why he was a big Dylan fan. So he enjoyed listening to kind of lyrics in songs. And I remember coming home to him listening to one of my albums one time, just so he could listen to the lyrics. So, yeah, kind of growing up with those kind of things, I'd always enjoy the funny songs that were on the records that we were listening to. So there was kind of a sense of, the ones with a kind of clever sense of humour, clever lyrics. Those were always the songs that I was drawn to for some reason.
Yeah.
And those were always the parts that I pushed for when I was doing kind of theatre and kind of musicals and operas and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that the lyrics come from that, and then kind of on the back of doing these youth opera things, they used to have reviews. Every year we'd kind of go away, we'd spend 4 or 5 weeks rehearsing this opera, and at the end of it all we'd do a review, and people would do kind of funny takes on songs or just sing silly songs to the cast and crew, and awards would be given out and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what introduced me to people like Noel Coward, particularly, who I'm a big fan of. Also, there's the kind of old British comedies as well that my mum was very much into. I don't know if you know the Carry On films at all.
I don't believe so, no.
No, it's essentially British farce. It's not particularly politically correct.
Okay.
But there's a real sense of British. It's very Benny Hill. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah,
you must
sure.
know Benny
Everybody
Hill.
knows Benny Hill. Yeah.
It's got those kind of feel to it. It's kind of the 50s, 60s, 70s Britain. Yeah, I mean, kind of humour. It's very kind of bawdy seaside, what we call kind of bawdy seaside humour.
Sure. I mean, what we get over here is like Monty Python, Fawlty Towers. Benny Hill certainly
forgot to mention Monty
Python
as well. Forgot to mention Monty Python. That's always been an influence, massive influence. We would spend days and hours just quoting Python at each other from the films, and definitely a Matching Tie and Handkerchief. That's in the album. That's in my collection of records here. I remember making my dad sit down in front of the Meaning of Life. To write down the words to the Universe song for me. And this was before the days of the internet, even before DVDs, so it was the videos, the VHS.
Didn't have any automatic dictation software handy.
Exactly, no. So he was literally going through line by line, pausing it and writing it down. And if he didn't hear it, he had to rewind it back again and write it down.
Yeah.
So I very keenly learnt the lyrics to that song very quickly. But those kind of, those clever lyrics... were something that kind of really were quite inspirational.
At what point did you take this sort of love and fascination with the clever lyrics and start writing your own stuff? Songwriting is a big leap from just listening to other people and do it.
Because I've always written songs. I have written songs for years. I've attempted to write songs with my bands when I was younger, but I was never particularly good at it. I was trying to play in punk rock bands or kind of serious rock bands and was trying to write those kind of lyrics. I kind of fell out of love with popular music in about 1999. I've always stated bands like The Strokes and Papa Roach are the two bands that killed popular music for me.
Okay.
And I just kind of, from the age of about 20, was just listening to music from the past, really.
Yeah.
I did various jobs. I'm actually a teach now, so I teach media production at a local college, and I've been doing that for the last 14 years or so. And during that time, I've been in various bands as well. I was in a dad rock covers band with a group of people from college. We were doing kind of rock classics. Then I was in another band where I tried to do the serious writing bedroom poet kind of thing, which was all right, but it didn't really work at all. And then I discovered a chap called Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer. I don't know if you've ever come across him at all.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I got to go do some homework after this.
Yeah. So he's the last 10 years or so. He was in a band back in the 90s called Collapsed Lung, who had quite a big hit with Eat My Goal. But he then kind of in about 2005, I think it was, he put together this act, Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer, which is basically him in a posh English accent singing to kind of hip-hop beats, replacing lyrics with stuff to do with being a chap.
Okay.
And he plays the banjolele, which was kind of one of the influences there.
All right.
And I've since kind of supported him at various gigs and that kind of thing. So actually, it was in preparation for a gig with him that I really started putting together the songs. About 4 years ago, I'd say, I got asked last minute to host at a vintage nightclub in Milton Keynes because their host had pulled out at the last minute.
Yeah.
And basically got all of my kind of presenter material written down and exhausted it in one night. And it went really well. They asked me to do it again, and I realised that it was difficult to write jokes, but it was easy to sing songs.
Okay.
And so I'd been mucking around with the ukulele for a little while, and I just thought I'll learn a few songs doing that. And that's where it started off, really. And then I found that words to that type of music were far easier for me to write. I found they became a lot more easily and a lot more genuinely than they had kind of trying to write for heavy rock.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Is it just the lightness of the sound or something?
I think it might be, but it's also kind of I find it a little bit freer in terms of the lyric structure and things like that. Not writing about serious, deep issues. I don't know. It just seems to come a lot easier.
Okay.
Doing the humorous writing seems to come a lot more easily to me.
Yeah.
Than trying to do some kind of artistic poetry.
You're a strong, determined woman. You always speak your mind. You race ahead of other girls and leave them far behind. You've achieved success through hard work. You've always had a plan. But that won't help you very much when you need to find a man to love you and protect you and correct you when you're wrong, to sweetly serenade you, that means sing you a nice song, to sweep you off your feet like you're in a fairy tale, to give your life a purpose you need a heterosexual male.
I think for years I was trying to do this kind of tortured poet role. Whereas actually I just like writing silly songs and I like funny lyrics.
Yeah.
I like a catchy tune and a pithy lyric.
All right. That's fair. I mean, you find something you enjoy, you might as well do that.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to the Headlands Vintage Nightclub thing, basically on that night, I had to come up with a stage name for myself. And my middle name is Benjamin. My first name's Tom, not Thomas. But Thomas sounded better.
Well, it's more formal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Benjamin Wilde, which sounded fine. But then our local, the club I've been going to for 14 years, well, I said no, since I've been 14, been going to see music acts locally in Bedford where I live, is called a Squires. And so a Squire seemed to be quite fitting to add on to the end of it as well.
Yes.
Because in Britain, it's very much just a formal thing that you write at the end of letters for somebody that doesn't have a title. In America, I've come to discover it actually means you're a lawyer.
Yes.
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 So I've had lots of American people asking me if I'm a lawyer and whether I practice law.
I was actually going to ask why you want to pretend to be a lawyer.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that in the UK at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I had no idea.
You see ESQ at the end of letters and things like that, and it's generally kind of from back in the olden days for people who had yet to have a formal title. So it could generally be kind of younger people, I think, from titled families would be so-and-so Esquire.
Right. But,
I think lots of American people just think I'm pretending to be a lawyer.
what about why were you asked to host at a vintage nightclub? What was it about you that drew them to you?
This is the thing, I haven't filled in the background there at all, have I? Myself and my partner have been going to what they call reenactment, or kind of vintage fashion events, fashion and music.
Okay.
Since we used to live in Brighton, which is kind of about 2 hours away from where we live now. And while we were down there, we very much got into the 1940s and 50s scene that goes on down there, and we discovered kind of a whole world of kind of events that cater to kind of music and dancing from the kind of 20s all the way through to the kind of 40s, 50s, 60s. And we just got involved within that by going along to events, chatting to people. We actually started getting involved on that scene.
Mm-hmm.
My partner then started doing vintage hairstyling, so kind of victory rolls and kind of quiffs and stuff like that for people for photo shoots.
Sure.
And she would then get asked to go to events to style people's hair at events as well. And through doing that, we actually got to meet lots and lots of people on what we would call the vintage scene, including Harry and Edna, who actually have a radio show called Harry and Edna on the Wireless, which goes out on kind of as a podcast now.
Oh, okay.
And they've always played kind of music from the 20s up to about the 1950s. And they used to run a nightclub called Hedna's Vintage Nightclub, which my partner was styling hair at for a while. There was an event that we organised in Bedford separate from that I hosted at, because I've got a theatre background, and my partner was organising it and asked me to host it for her, so she didn't have to pay anybody. That went quite well. It went down quite well. So it was off the back of that I then got asked to host at this other one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of through people that we know on the scenes and the kind of the circles that we operate in, really, that I got asked to do that.
Yeah. At what point did you start carrying through this vintage styling into your performance and your music?
So, as I say, these events were very, very, very dress up kind of thing. So you'd go along in your kind of formal suit and tie. Initially, I didn't really have the kind of clothes. You'd end up in a charity shop or a thrift store suit that cost about £5. And eventually I started kind of noticing that people were far better dressed than me, and that I needed to up my game a little bit, particularly when I started hosting, because as the host you've got to kind of put across a certain image there. And then through that event I got to know some vintage kind of suit companies who offered to kind of give me discounts on stuff for kind of presenting in their clothes and stuff. So I've started kind of buying some nice suits for performing in. We also do there's a festival in the UK called the Twinwood Festival every year, which is a big music and dancing festival. It's actually where the Glenn Miller, you've heard of Glenn Miller,
of course,
I'm assuming, yeah. It was the place he took his last flight from when he disappeared over the channel.
Oh.
So they'd kind of flown out from RAF Twinwood. So it's a big old air base that's kind of been refurbished and kind of regenerated, and they've got a museum up there to Glenn Miller. And they do a festival every year up on the site there, which is basically, it started off as the Glenn Miller Festival, but then became bigger than that. It became kind of music from the 20s up to the 60s. And so they kind of have headlining acts now. They had Roy G. Hemmings the other year. I don't know if you've heard of him. And kind of Beatles covers bands and all those kind of things play up there.
Okay.
So we've been going to that for the last kind of 12, 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of those kind of traders who sell those kind of suits and those kind of clothes there. And you find yourself buying things while you're there just because it's there. But it it's become a big shopping event every year now that we go up there.
Well, it sounds almost like a Renaissance fair.
if you would, I think that's kind of the British equivalent to that. So they kind of vintage festivals, Renaissance fairs, yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of the scene that I've really been operating on.
Now, what era of fashion would you say is the look that you are going for?
I would say 20s to 40s. I'm not a purist.
Okay. A little bit of artistic license?
Yeah, absolutely. I find purism a little bit boring. There are people who I always getting judged by people on the internet for having the wrong shoes. Or somebody judged me for not having the right tie knot.
Oh boy!
The other week.
Well, the internet's for nothing if not for judging people anonymously.
Absolutely. So you have to try and take that with a pinch of salt a little bit.
Now, was it from this era of fashion that you discovered the banjolele, or was this a marriage that you came to separately?
Well, I think the key thing was that I could already play the guitar.
Yeah.
And when I kind of made a decision that I wanted to sing songs and kind of write silly, pithy lyrics, it didn't really suit playing with the guitar at all. And I'd kind of picked up a ukulele because lots of people had been learning the ukulele, and there was lots of kind of ukulele workshops going on, that
right.
kind of thing, which I went to one of and then decided I was going to teach myself on the internet. So George Formby is kind of one of these British icons. He sung songs, his famous one's called When I'm Cleaning Windows, and Leaning on a Lamppost at the Corner of a Street. And he was kind of essentially the British comedy singer of the kind of 40s and of the war era.
Okay.
So you see a lot of kind of people at the kind of vintage events, a lot of performers doing the George Formby act. And I've always quite liked George Formby, but it's a bit dated and I find it a little bit limiting. So I learnt a few George Formby numbers, and actually I really like the sound of the banjolele compared to the ukulele. I think it's a bit more distinctive and a bit more interesting.
Right.
And lends itself really nicely to playing kind of fast-paced music as well. And it looks lovely.
Yeah, it's really a striking instrument.
Aesthetically, and this is what it's all about, really, is kind of aesthetically it looks good. It looks more interesting than a ukulele.
Sure.
And everyone's playing the ukulele at the moment as well. It seems to have had a massive renaissance of in the last 10, 15 years of people getting interested in playing it. Because it's an easy instrument to play, I think. It's only 4 strings.
Yeah.
And having an easy instrument to play was quite important in terms of backing myself up, being able to sing along. Yeah, I very quickly picked up the ukulele, been learning online and teaching myself various kind of strum patterns and techniques. I'm still learning, really. I'm still going on YouTube and kind of looking up the
I mean, an instrument is a lifelong learning process. It's not, you don't learn it and then never learn anything else.
No, absolutely.
So how long have you been playing the banjolele now?
Got the banjolele I'm playing now in 2016.
So it's actually pretty new.
It's actually pretty new. I've been ukulele probably since about 2015, 2014 maybe, on and off. But really it's been since 2016, since I've been playing it at events. As I say, I got asked to do these kind of these vintage nightclub gigs. And then I got asked by the local promoter for Bedford Squires. He had Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer, playing, and he had absolutely no idea who to get to support him. And he'd seen that I'd been doing something with a banjolele, and just asked me if I wanted to take a support slot. So I kind of thought, okay. And then I very quickly had to knock together some backing tracks to make it sound a little bit better than just than just me standing on stage playing a banjolele.
Sure.
I threw in a couple of original tracks there as well because I thought that would help. And that first gig, it went down quite well. It wasn't brilliant, but since then it kind of gave me the leverage to actually kind of continue on going. And it's kind of increased from there. The big advantage I've got is because I work at a further education college, we've got recording studios and video cameras and all those kind of things available.
Sure. And
students who need work experience, who are willing to kind of come and help out and film stuff and kind of record things. So I spent a couple of summers recording the album with a chap I work with, Lee, who worked in the music department. And so we just got into the recording studio, recorded some bits and pieces, had a friend come in to play the piano, who was coming in. It was he's kind of a world-class piano player who I happen to know, and he just did it for the fun of it. It's kind of like asking a Michelin star chef to boil you an egg. He basically came in and knocked something out very, very quickly in an afternoon.
Oh, that's funny.
And then, yes, it's gone on from there. And actually, you're talking about the kind of media side of things. I think the teaching of media production at college has really helped in terms of me becoming kind of social media savvy. Also, my partner is a social media advisor, so she kind of does social media and marketing. So she's the one who's been responsible for going, no, don't post that. Post that now. In fact, when just before the video went viral, actually, I put it up. It'd been up for about 2 weeks, and it had got 2,000 views, I think, and I got quite excited about that. And I was literally on the verge of putting up another video, and my partner just said, no, leave it another day. And then it was literally the next day that it kind of exploded, and it was going up kind of overnight by the thousands.
Now, how many views has this video gotten?
I don't know.
It's got to be over 1 million at this point, right?
It's in various different places. On Facebook, on my page, it's 8.4 million. I think. I think a good 500,000 of those are probably me. On YouTube, it's now I think 2.4. But it's also on various other places like 9gag and Viral Hog and all those kind of sites. And looking on some of them, it's kind of 30 million views. That's Facebook.
Wow.
And Facebook views aren't. It only counts it after you then have to watch it for 3 seconds on Facebook.
Right.
But yeah, it's all gone a bit crazy.
I've tried, and I've tried even more. I've cried, and I can't recall what for. I pressed, I pushed, I've yelled, I begged in hopes of some success. But the inevitable fact is that it never will impress. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks have runneth dry. I've tried to go fuck shopping, but there's no fucks left to buy. I've no more fucks to give, though more fucks I've tried to get. I'm over my fuck budget and I'm now in fucking debt.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming, but I wanted to let you know about a great opportunity to support local theater. Connecticut playwright Scott Stephen Kegler and Hole in the Wall Theater of New Britain, Connecticut will be premiering Kegler's new play, Champagne and Licorice, from May 17th through June 8th. Now, the play tells the story of a young woman returning home on New Year's Eve, where she's introduced to her mother's new boyfriend, learns the facts about her brother's polyamorous relationships, and invites a drunken red-nosed clown to the party. So watch as these characters struggle through communication breakdowns, foiled expectations, and end-of-life choices, while also, trying to stay awake long enough to watch the ball drop. For tickets and showtimes, visit hitw.org, or you can call Hole in the Wall Theater at 860-229-3049. Okay, let's get back to our regular programming.
It's all gone a bit crazy, and it's literally happened in the space of a couple of months. So I'm still really working it out at the moment. Doing this kind of thing is incredibly bizarre to me.
Where are you playing this song in this video?
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that's kind of added to the mystery of the song and the video, and kind of added to its viral appeal, I think.
Oh, I'm sure it is, yes.
So in November, I was releasing the album.
Awkward Encounters While Walking My Dog.
While Walking My Dog.
Currently 5 stars on Google Play Music.
So it was being released, and I wanted to do an album launch, and I wanted to do a live stream of an album launch as well, being kind of the media person I am.
Okay.
It'd be quite an interesting idea. So we thought about kind of doing it in a pub or doing it at the local kind of club. But actually, in those kind of places, you have to have a big audience to make it feel like it's got an atmosphere.
Right.
Now, the shop who we're recording is a shop called Boyd's of Bedford, which is in Bedford. And within Boyd's of Bedford is a company called the Vintage Suit Hire Company. So they kind of hire suits out for weddings and kind of events and that kind of thing. Tweed suits, quite affordable prices.
And very on brand for you.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But we have a friend who had got a job working there, and so got to know the people who own the shop quite well. So when we were trying to think of a place to do the launch gig from, my partner, the social media savvy one, turned around and just said, "Why didn't you just do it at Boyd's? Quite a small space, but you can fit 5, 6, 7 people in there, and it will feel like there's lots of people in there, and it'll have an atmosphere." Which was perfect, absolutely perfect. It gave promotion to the shop, but then also it's a place for me to stand in front of nice-looking suits.
Right.
So actually, what you've got, I set up a camera in the background to record from the side, so I could kind of chop it up and kind of use the different songs from it for various different purposes. But also in front, we had just my partner's phone on a kind of on a tripod, filming the live stream. So we did it over Facebook Live, did the whole gig over that. So yeah, so that was a decision to record it in there, to record it in the suit shop.
Yeah.
Again, aesthetics. It looked good.
Oh, it's perfect, aesthetically perfect.
Yeah.
So,
but also cross branding as well, because we were friends with the company. It was a good kind of marketing opportunity for both of us.
Oh yeah.
At the time, better for me than for them, I would say. But they're quite happy now.
Yeah. I'm
because
sure.
obviously it's got it out there. People have actually been going into the shop apparently just to go and see the shop.
Oh, really? It's a tourist attraction now, huh?
It's actually a really small shop as well, and people often walk in and go, "Oh."
I saw the whole thing in the video.
Yeah, I know.
So let's talk about the album for a minute, because it's been out for a few months, five months now.
Yeah, so November it was released. So yeah,
and I like I said before, I've listened to it several times. I really enjoy it. There are a few songs that really stand out for me.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is it really that difficult to walk a dog in in Britain without having people accost you?
So that is, I've got a German Shepherd.
Okay.
And they have a certain image, I would think, in Britain as being kind of, they were kind of muscle dogs back before kind of you get kind of the Staffordshire Bull Terriers and kind of the Bull Terriers and stuff like that now, which kind of people have as kind of dogs. But German Shepherds, definitely when I was growing up, were very kind of much, they were kind of guard dogs, and people had them in an intimidating way, I think.
Sure.
And there just seems to be this thing that German Shepherds in particularly, drunk people on park benches have an affinity with and seem to love them. And so I do get accosted on a regular basis by drunk people in the park who just want to kind of go, "Oh, it's a lovely dog."
Oh, that's fun.
And it tends to be groups of people or a couple of people who are kind of swigging from beers at kind of 11 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's down to that experience. It's not horrendous, but it's one of those awkward situations.
Sure.
You're not quite sure what to say. You don't really want to stay and hang around, but you don't want to be impolite. And you definitely don't want to kind of get any aggression at all from drunk people. I have a friendly dog who likes to run around. You may have seen us on our daily walk. We frequent the river and the parks around the town, and when I see someone I know, she'll always let me stop and talk. She gets a little anxious when she sees another dog, but with people she's always been relaxed. But she's not very discerning when it comes to choosing friends, and there seems to be a certain type of person she attracts. All the local winos want to make friends with my dog, and I'm far, far too polite to walk away. They ask me lots of questions and they offer their affections, and I feel obliged to uncomfortably stay. Their behaviour may be crude, but to ignore them would be rude, and my mother didn't bring me up that way. All the local winos want to make friends with my dog, and I'm far, far too polite to walk away.
So that's, that's the first song in the album is a little bit autobiographical.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the album also telling a little bit about your everyday life?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, what's the second song? I'm just trying to think of what the second song is on the album now. Is that Tory Novelty Toff?
It is, yes.
Well, that was kind of written. It's very much an act, the whole kind of posh toff thing, and it's sending up a kind of certain type of person in the UK. But there's a certain politician at the moment over here who says outrageous things, but because he says it in a kind of
you
very
have one
posh,
of those too.
Yeah, he says it in a very posh, matter-of-fact kind of way. You should look him up. A chap called Jacob Rees-Mogg. Double-barrel name. And he is kind of the quintessential, if you were to stereotype a rich English person from kind of the 1800s, it's him.
Okay.
He absolutely... But he also has some questionable views on things. But because of the way, the kind of the wittiness that he has and the way with words, people love it and kind of go past this sense of, actually, no, what he's saying is pretty horrible there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that song is very much about that.
Yeah.
About these kind of posh politicians who get away with things because people find them funny. I know you must have heard of Boris Johnson as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Again, horrendous views on certain things, but he's Boris, and everybody goes, but it's Boris, isn't he? Isn't he hilarious? So that's very much what that song was about. That's kind of my attempt at political satire.
Okay.
And then I can't remember what the third song is now. I'm just trying to
well, we don't have to go track by track, but third one is Serenade. Serenade
is my attempt at writing a mansplained love song. So yeah, I deliberately trying to be patronising within it to make a point, but women tend to find that one funny. And some guys tend to not really get the irony with it.
Oh, okay.
And then,
the next two are a couple of my favorites: "Living in Sin" and "I Can't Drink Cider Anymore."
Yeah. So very much autobiographical.
I think those two are perfect songs.
I can't drink cider anymore. I can't drink cider anymore. A cold lager and lime makes for a rather smashing time, but cider is a thing I can't endure. Teenage drinking was a curse, and it left me feeling worse than other drinks we managed to procure. Now I can't drink cider, I can't drink cider, I can't drink cider anymore.
So yeah, I mean, Living in Sin is just about not wanting to get married and not feeling the pressure to get married because it's expensive, and it's one of those things that kind of it's a lot of fuss and requires a lot of attention on you. And me and my partner have both never been wanting that kind of thing on from that perspective.
Right.
But yeah, I Can't Drink Cider Anymore is basically about drinking really cheap cider in the park when I was a teenager. That's what that song is about, really.
Yeah, those two are both very catchy, like sing-along type songs.
Yeah. In fact, I'm quite surprised at how many people kind of sing along at gigs, particularly to I Can't Drink Cider Anymore.
Yeah.
Seems to have kind of caught the spirit.
You probably should get used to it, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's only going to be more and more people as time goes on.
And then you've got Magazine Pages, which is about finding pornographic material in the woods as a preteen. I don't know if that's something you've experienced in the US, but it definitely seems
my
to be a
parents
thing.
listened to this. I never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, but basically, when I was younger, I remember the first kind of experiences that we had of kind of nudity and kind of full pornography were things that we found in the woods.
Sure.
I don't know who put them there. But talking to a lot of other British people, it seems to be an experience that people who grew up during the 70s up to about the mid-90s all remember that.
Yeah.
Very strange thing. Who put it there? I've no idea. But, and then we've got I've No More Fucks, which was written about literally the easiest song I've ever written after an incredibly stressful work meeting. It literally just came flowing out of me just incredibly easily because I was just so frustrated with the kind of red tape and the things being put in the way and the being asked to do
I think
pointless tasks. Part
of the viral appeal to this is that everybody can relate to that feeling.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And actually, I've had people have kind of had it played at funerals and things like that now. People have actually played it to quit work, to quit jobs, which I feel a bit guilty about.
Well, don't feel guilty for that one. That's a relief for a lot of people, I think.
But a lot of people are kind of applying it in lots and lots of different ways, it seems to kind of have hit a kind of universal note with that. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about what's going on across over here politically at the moment with this whole Brexit thing.
It's made a few headlines, yeah.
Because none of us know what's going on with it. It's ridiculous. We're supposed to be leaving this Friday, and there's no agreements being made about it at all. But it's all getting so frustrating and heated. And a lot of people are applying it to that they've just given up caring about it now, and they just kind of want to move on from it. So I think that's been a big kind of part of the appeal over here as well. And I've had people who vote Republican and people who vote Democrat over in the US who have both come to me thinking it's kind of aimed at that side of it. And actually, all I want to say to those people is, look, I just wrote it in anger after a work meeting. It's great that you've kind of applied it to that. But yeah, it's very much just
everybody interprets art differently. And then, I mean, the last song on there, the I Don't Want Kids, I assume is another autobiographical piece.
Absolutely.
And as a father of three, who's always enjoyed having kids and always wanted them, I find this song hilarious.
I'm glad. I desperately wanted it to not come across as offensive. Because,
I'm sure somebody will be offended by it somewhere, because everybody finds a reason to be offended.
I mean, particularly YouTube commenters. It tends to be where people get really angry in YouTube's comments. YouTube comments. I get kind of rants from people that kind of last paragraphs about the fact that, I don't know what I'm talking about. Of course I should want kids and all this kind of stuff, which is fine.
What are the other 7 billion people going to do if you don't have more?
I know, this is it, isn't it? This is it. But it's just, we've kind of, it's a decision we've made. I don't think it's going to be one that we change our minds on.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is. But people think they can change your mind, I think, and that's where that song comes from, is that, I don't mind people's children. I enjoy, we've got friends who've got children that I love hanging out with. I love being around, but ultimately, not for me.
But I mean, you've taken all these topics from your own life.
Yeah.
And you have turned them into really funny, witty, clever songs. And
thank you.
How are you able to kind of take a step back at all of this stuff and be able to apply this humor to it? For some topics that, I think people who aren't necessarily as comedically minded might not be able to find humor in these situations in their own lives.
Yeah, I think I find liberation in finding humor and stuff, because otherwise, particularly after the work meeting, if I hadn't kind of released those thoughts somewhere, I think I probably would have been fired from my job, because it would have come out. In all honesty, it would have come out in rage at the people 700 people in a work meeting.
Oh boy! Yeah. An accident reply all.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's exactly it. Well, the latest song that I've written. I don't know if you've heard it. I've put the video up on YouTube for it, which, hopefully if I do another album, I'll put it on there. It's a song called Could You Really Not Just Put This in an Email?
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah. Which is, again, another one about kind of pointlessly being called en masse.
Universally understood.
Where I work, we have to cancel lessons. We have to kind of do all that kind of stuff. And you kind of go along and go, okay. So I cancelled everything and I've kind of dropped everything now. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure. I kind of talk about my workplace. I enjoy working there. I've been working there for kind of 13 years now. And I wouldn't have been there that long if I didn't enjoy working there.
Sure.
There's definitely benefits to working there. I teach kind of 16 to 19-year-olds in kind of media production, and they keep me grounded. They keep me from going too far above my station a little bit, because there's nothing to bring you down to earth like a teenager.
Right.
When you're feeling like particularly successful and high, there's nothing that can bring you crashing down to earth more quickly than.
But for even anybody who has a job that they love doing, there's always those kind of universal truths about anybody in any workplace.
No, absolutely. Particularly when you've worked there for so long as well.
Of course. So what projects do you foresee getting into in the next few months or
So
years?
I've got quite a few gigs coming up. We're going on holiday on Friday. We're going for a weekend break up to Edinburgh. We're going to go on the train from King's Cross and pretend that we're in Harry Potter. And
wave to platform 9 3/4.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. We are a little bit kind of Potter obsessed in our house.
Oh wow! We just discovered that in my house. I finished all the books in the last couple months. And
it's getting a bit out of hand at the moment, but we do kind of do holidays based on Potter. But it's great. We both really enjoy it. Yeah, so we're going away for a little bit. I've got some gigs coming up in kind of May and June. I'm going to be doing some more recording over the summer, I think. But I've also going to have a Christmas single coming out. Which is, still... the song's on YouTube already. I played it. It's something I knocked out just before this Christmas, but I've decided to record it properly. And because I have a bunch of degree-level media students who needed a client project, I decided I'd be their client. And so on Friday just gone, we actually filmed the first few bits of it in a local hotel. So we set up a Christmas tree in the middle of April.
Yeah, I think I saw a photo that you had posted on social media.
So that's going to be the starting point. It is going to be far bigger than that. I've got kind of grand ideas of it turning a little bit into. I don't know if you've seen The Meaning of Life.
Of course,
The Meaning of Life. Every sperm is sacred.
Oh yeah.
That's the kind of the vibe I'm looking to go for with it. Whether we can achieve anything like that, definitely probably not that scale, but that's the influence I'm taking.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And also the Christmas in Heaven scene at the end as well.
Are you going to have Eric Idle stopping by for a little cameo?
It would be great. It would be great. In fact, a chap I know, in fact, Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer, in fact, got to interview Michael Palin last year for a publication that we have over here called the Chap magazine, which has been running since about 2000, which is basically aimed at the kind of people who listen to my music. People who enjoy dressing up in suits and being a bit silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Chat magazine is this great publication. It's kind of great community now of people who kind of are into that kind of thing. It also links into kind of the steampunk scene as well. I don't know if you've heard of steampunk.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. There's a big scene for that in the UK, and I'm starting to break into that quite massively now as well. I'm going to be playing at the British National Space Centre in November.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how impressive the British National Space Centre is.
Sounds impressive.
The lady who does their marketing is kind of quite heavily involved on the steampunk scene over here, so she has a lot of events that go on there, steampunk festivals and that kind of thing. So I should be playing at that, and that should be good fun.
Sounds great.
Quite a few summer festivals that I'll be playing at, and then hopefully doing some recording as well. As I say, I've got a Christmas single to record. I've got some other songs lined up that I'm hoping to get recorded over the summer as well. So potentially a new album next year. But
oh boy, I
cannot
cannot wait.
We shall see if I can fit it in between teaching as well, because I'm still teaching full time at the moment.
We'll do something about that.
Yeah.
So, have you booked Wembley or Royal Albert Hall yet?
No, nothing like that. It's mostly. I don't know. Cider at the pub is where I'm playing most of my gigs at the moment.
Okay.
But National Space Centre is the most impressive one. I think the most impressive sounding one that I've got coming up.
Oh, that does sound pretty cool.
That's going to be good fun.
All right.
It's going to be good fun.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. This has really been enjoyable.
Thank you very much for having me on.
A huge thank you to Tom for agreeing to navigate those dangerous interdimensional wastelands of transoceanic time zones. His album, Awkward Encounters While Walking My Dog, is available now at thomasbenjaminwildesq.com or through iTunes or Google Play or Spotify or really wherever you get your music these days. Now, coincidentally, wherever it is you get that music is likely to be a place where you can also get podcasts. So while you're downloading Tom's album, why not hit the subscribe button on the Table to Stage feed? You can also rate and review music and podcasts on most of those platforms, and every review and rating helps the creator and also makes it easier for others to find new things. Okay, time is running out for you to get your tickets to Table to Stage live at CT Comedy Theater in Hartford on May 22nd. So visit tabletostagepod.com/live today to secure your tickets in advance. Comedian Rob Santos, singer-songwriter Abby Auden, and drag queen duo Summer Orlando and Barbara Jones Street Sand will all be performing. Plus, there will be plenty of opportunity for audience participation and a couple of outstanding vendors on hand. So come on down. That's it for now. Until next time, keep creating.